they're investing in the plant, they're expanding at the plant, and that just means more opportunities for the people in the area to join Califia family if they wanted.
You just heard Ginger Wejmar. Ginger has 22 years of supply chain experience with a demonstrated history of working in food and beverage industry. She's a working mother of 2 boys, William and John, and wife to Patrick Wejmar. In today's show, we discuss Califia Farms and how women leaders impact the supply chain industry. Later in the show, we talk about work-life balance and how being a leader and a mother can be rewarding and challenging.
Welcome back to the Our 2 Cents podcast, the show where your local professionals sit down with an array of guests to hear their story and impart some wisdom for both business and life-improving skills. This is your place to hear business and community leaders discuss relevant topics that matter to you.
Welcome to today's show. My name is Amanda DiGiacomo. Before we get into today's episode, I would like to encourage all of our listeners to follow us on all of our social media pages. Ginger, we are happy to have you joining us today. Thank you for being here. I can't wait to get into some of the topics today with you, but before we start, can you tell us a little bit about Califia Farms?
Hi, Amanda. Thank you for having me. I'm Ginger Wejmar. I'm the Senior Director of Planning and Analytics at Califia Farms. Califia Farms is a plant-based beverage company. We make almond milks, oat milks, coffees, juices, and creamers. The company's 12 years old, and the first production plant was started here in Bakersfield. So we're out on Laredo Highway. We produce about 75% of the company's volume.
That's awesome. So a lot of people might not know that they are local. They're in Shafter, and they are a plant-based company. So that's why we were intrigued to have you on, because you're a local trend starter, company trying to really pave the way in the plant-based industry for food and beverage. So again, thanks for coming.
Yeah, and Califia is an inclusive kind of brand. We didn't want to be just a vegan or vegetarian kind of company, and even incorporating one product a day or switching out your creamers to plant-based can have a benefit to your health.
I like that you bring that up. We did a few things, looking into your website, and a lot of the products do have tons of health benefits, lowering cholesterol, advantages to health, special diets, and, heart health and things like that. So for our listeners out there, this is a plant-based, but also a really good, healthy alternative, and they taste really good, and they have low sugar, so if you're on diets that require low sugar, this is definitely something you can add to your coffees. You can just drink, because they have oat milk and almond milk and things like that straight up. And I know you guys have tested with other different products in the past, and I think you had yogurts and things like that.
Yeah, we had probiotic plant-based yogurts, some butters. Mm-hmm. But we really wanted to bring focus and energy to our drinks. And so that's where our growth is. And that's where we're focusing over the next 3 years.
So their mission, their mission statement is at Califia Farms, we are on a mission to create a future where plants replace dairy without any compromise. And I think that you guys, illustrate that very well throughout all of your products and the culture at your work. Doing any type of research on your company, it just screams like green, green, green. You guys definitely, try to reduce CO2 usage, water usage, and you try to, make a positive impact, not only the economy locally here, but also climate change progressiveness. But with that, the common myth that almonds use like a lot of water. So would you explain, because you guys use almond milk. So can you explain like how you're, making it progressive forward leap if you're kind of using almonds?
Yeah, so there's comments made that almonds use the most water of a lot of the agricultural things in the valley, but really they do use more water than, say, a peach tree, but they use a lot less water than cows. And so that's, where we're sustainable and helping the environment is the more almond milk you drink, the less cow milk you're drinking and less cows that we have, which create carbon dioxide and consume more water than we would in growing almonds.
Yeah, that's a great clarification there. So for our listeners, they might not really understand, what supply chain is, or, like you said, you're the senior director of supply chain. Can you give us your definition of what supply chain is, just so kind of they understand like what we're going to be talking about a little bit?
Sure. Most people probably listening has heard supply chain issues at Christmas time last year, with port issues being delayed and people not being able to get products. So supply chain, almost every business that provides a product has a supply chain. It's about getting materials to produce your product, making it, getting it out to the distribution centers, and having it available for Target and Walmart to order and have in their stores. So my team is responsible for that end-to-end part of supply chain. We manage materials, we manage schedule. We look at 3-year capacity planning and growth. We have to go determine where the next production plant's going to be. And then we also make sure we deploy it to all our distribution centers so it's at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, so when we go to Albertsons and Vaughn's to go get, the pumpkin spice latte creamer, it's there.
Yeah, it's there because I made sure it was there.
Yeah, we can thank Ginger right here. Okay, so you kind of touched upon it a little bit about, Christmas time and the delays in logistics. Can you talk about some challenges you're seeing in, the supply chain industry specifically?
Yeah, so with COVID, a lot of things changed, but a lot of the supply chain was severely impacted by that. Things that would take normally 2 or 3 weeks took 10 weeks, 12 weeks, and we had to pivot very quickly to adjust to that. We're still into that. I thought with COVID kind of lightening up and things opening up, we would see some improvement, but the supply chain got hit so hard that it's going to probably take us more time to get back to where we were and having the containers in the right place, having vendors and companies up to speed and producing what we need to support production.
Wow, that's interesting. I read a little bit of something about, regulations from the government can always, impact the food and beverage industry. And I know that there was a big one in 2021 where the US FDA was changing how you had to present the nutrition facts labels. Can you explain that challenge and how you guys overcame it at your guys' firm?
Yeah, so they wanted to change the way you reported serving sizes, and we had already had in place to redesign our artwork on our sleeves. We just incorporated that with the new design, and we changed the label on every sleeve we have. In supply chain, those kind of changes are a big pain, right? Because you have to time every single SKU that you make with when the new packaging's ready, and it's a very big production, and it takes a lot of time, and you don't want to throw away a lot of the old ones, so you have to time it. So you run out old and start up new without interrupting supply. Which
makes sense. Have you read anything about the new labels, machines that they're going to be coming out to try to help with the new labeling? I heard that, people were doing 2D and then they're mentioning there's new type of products. Have you heard of any of the new machinery on the labels?
No, we've just recently installed a brand new sleever. So our bottle comes in plain, and then we put the artwork in a plastic sleeve over the bottle.
Okay.
And so that's how our business operates. So I'm not sure if that technology would apply to the way our design and materials of our bottle. But and our bottle is, people probably know our bottle more than they know our name. A lot of people can't pronounce Califia.
Yeah.
They call it Califia, or I've heard it many different ways. But the bottle is really recognized, that curvy shape that we have on the shelf. And we also do get criticism about it being plastic. So we're constantly working on projects to reduce our waste.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, especially millennial groups, we're very active in trying to not leave, a major footprint. So I think you've been able to capture that and be able to have, customers want to support it because you do listen to what they're saying. So that's always nice. Any other challenges you think are, currently on the horizon in the industry?
Well, I think many companies, we're being faced with inflation. We've had to take 2 price increases this year just because our own costs have gone up. You mentioned logistics. The freight and logistics to get things across the country is significantly increased. We have to keep watches on, the railroad. They were talking about striking. That we move a lot of materials across the country using that. So there's a lot of things that we have to kind of keep our finger on the pulse to understand what the impacts would be to the business.
Yeah, especially with California increasing gas prices and the gas tax and things like that. I'm sure that does not help, especially because you are local. Shafter, you have a headquarters in LA as well, right?
So, yeah, our corporate headquarters are in LA. And we distribute out of right here in Bakersfield as well at US Cold. And then we have Quakertown in Pennsylvania and McDonough, Georgia. So we have places all across the country, and we've got to move that inventory effectively.
Yeah, that does present some challenges here. I'm going to shift a little bit to, talking about, you are a senior, director at this company, and it's a progressive company, but I wanted to talk about, you being a female leader in this industry, because you are. And I came across some statistics I'd like to share with, everyone that's listening about the industry and female leaders, and then you can kind of, give some insight that what your company does for that. So at statistics in 2021, women make up 41% of the supply chain workforce. That decreases to 33% when you're a first line manager. It drops to 29% for senior managers. It drops to 26% for directors, and it drops to 23% for senior directors and VPs. And then it drops to 15% for senior vice presidents and for CPOs. Now you are a senior director, so you're a part of that 23%, which is, awesome that you've been able to get in that position and make an impact. How would you say that your company is helping, employ more women and leaders and things like that?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate to work at Califia because they do recognize the benefit of having diversity in the leadership team. Our executive leadership team, the C-suite, more than half of that is female. On the, senior leadership team for my supply chain, 4 of 6 of us are female, and my chief supply chain officer is a female. So it is really nice to, see that diversity across all the tables, depending on what meeting I'm in, and even in other departments at Califia Farms, they're led by women. So it's really nice to have that camaraderie, and then also that kind of understanding of being female in a fast-paced, high-stress kind of environment. A lot of people think of supply chain as, logistics, trucking, warehousing, manufacturing, and, and probably 20 years ago, it was mostly men leading those divisions of companies. So it's been really nice to be able to grow my career during this time and get to the level I'm at.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because you have been doing this for 22 years, and you just mentioned maybe 20 years ago it wasn't like that. So have you seen, you've worked at different companies, and now you're at Califia, but have you seen the change in your industry throughout different jobs?
I have. I had I don't know if this is an appropriate story to share, but in 2005, which wasn't that long ago, I had a manager tell me I couldn't help but be bitchy because I was a girl, because I pushed back on him for, keeping us late one day at a meeting. And, you're like, how is this happening to me? This is not 1955. So, even in the early 2000s of seeing that. So I think just also growing myself and my confidence, I don't tolerate that kind of, conversation and to be talked to that way as well. But I also think that people are realizing you can't talk like that
anymore. Yeah.
Anymore. So I think it's, it's been a great change.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't even, under 32 years ago that, women could go get a credit card without a male co-signer. So I do think we have, changed a lot. And I know in California, especially for public boards, they require that one woman must serve on as a board of directors. So I do think the culture is changing, and, we are incorporating more female leaders, which I think we can see that businesses are thriving and doing better because they're getting, different perspectives on how to do things. Yeah.
And I really enjoy, my favorite part of being a leader is mentoring and coaching people below me. And specifically women, because you do have to navigate that world and find a balance of not sounding bitchy or people disregarding you because, whatever their perception of females are, when, a male counterpart could be just direct and a go-getter. And so it's beneficial to kind of pass along what I've learned over my career to, up and coming, new females in their careers.
That's awesome. In your current position, you've been with the company for several years, I think 5 or 6 years, correct?
My 5-year anniversary is next week.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Congratulations. What are some things that you personally felt like you tackled on and that you were able to kind of they were doing it this way and we improved it this way? What are some of the successes that you've had in the company?
Yeah, I took this opportunity. I worked for a big company in town, the Dryers plant, the biggest ice cream plant in the world. I worked for Smucker's before that. So I've come from a really big food industry in my background. And I was actually recruited for this role. And I wanted to really flex my years of experience and add value to a company. So that's why I took the role. The company is only 12 years old, so it's still fairly young. And so when I started, they were 7 years old, and they didn't have really any of the processes or tools in place to look further out, to make sure they could meet their demand, to make sure that they had the capacity and the storage and the distribution network to meet the growth that they were looking for. And so I've basically built our processes, my team, from scratch. When I started, I had one person. Today, I'm managing a team of 13, and it's demand planning, supply planning, deployment. So it's been really rewarding to see that growth. And I mean, essentially, I've designed it. No, did I have all the experience to do that? No. I've learned along the way some of the pitfalls of thinking it should be one way and finding out, well, no, that's probably not really the best way to approach it. And, everyone needs to fail to learn, I think. And so I take those learnings and expand it and improve with what we're doing.
Awesome. Now, because I personally, know you, I know that the company also does a lot of things to improve culture. And I think you guys had some, not retreat, but like a bowling activity and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about the culture at Califia?
Yeah, I think, so it's been interesting as the company's evolved and grown. I mean, it's probably 3.5 times the size it was when I started. And we have, 20 to 30% year-over-year growth projections. And what comes with that is you have to hire people, right? You have to make sure that you can scale up and sustain that growth. And over the last 2 years, we've expanded significantly with the people we've hired during COVID. So a lot of these people for their first year and a half, 2 years, worked for a company where they've never met a person in person. So it's been an interesting evolution. But I think because of that, you have to rely on your teammates. You have to collaborate. Our values are, very strongly rooted in interdependency with each other, speaking with candor, being innovative and taking risks, educated risks. And so it makes it an exciting environment to work in, but also that you're so collaborative and connected with all the departments. Before this we have new leadership that came out about 3 years ago. And before that, we were kind of all over the place. Like everyone was working hard and had great ideas, but we weren't like all focused on one thing. And so this new leadership has done that. And yes, it's a fast-paced grind of a job, especially in supply chain, but we're all going towards the same goal. And you can feel that. And there's no, sometimes you can be environments where there's, back talking or,
Toxic,
friction.
Yeah,
toxic environments. And I can't say that we have any of that, at least not in my experience. And so it's a really nice place to work. And, everybody feels like we're part of a team and a bigger purpose.
That's awesome. Now, how big is the Bakersfield location?
So the Bakersfield location currently has 2 production plants. We make almond milks, coffees, creamers, juices.
Cold brews, I think.
Cold brew coffees. Yeah, as I said, this year they're set to produce about 14 million cases out of 24 million cases that we're making this year. So I guess it's a little less than what, maybe the 70%, but they're the heart of our company. They make such key products that it's, important. They kept running during COVID. We had very little shutdowns because of COVID, and that really helped us sustain and deliver service rates that even the biggest companies couldn't do. I mean, we're delivering a 98% fill rate where some of the big, like Dannon and bigger companies are happy with 75, 80%. And so it's really because of the dedication and the employees at the plant on Laredo Highway that we've been able to do that. And, they're part of this community and they should take pride in what they've been able to deliver.
Yeah, I mean, it is true. And I mean, you guys too, that you are able to hire local and help the local economy here too. Which is very, very nice.
And right now we've just broken ground to expand the plant or to save on freight, because right now our bottles come to us already formed. We're installing blow molders, so we'll just bring in those kind of little test tube shaped bottles and blow them on site, which will reduce. We bring in 12 truckloads a day, and that will turn into maybe 1 truckload a week. So they're investing in the plant, they're expanding at the plant, and that just means more opportunities for the people in the area to join Califia family if they wanted to.
Yeah, that's awesome. If they wanted to join, how can they apply?
Well, of course, CalifiaFarms.com. We have all our job listings on there.
Awesome. All right, we're going to switch to, a little bit personal. So you are a senior director, you're a female leader in your company, but you also are a mother of 2 boys, William and John. How would you say that you're balancing the, motherhood, especially during COVID and working and things like that?
Well, probably most moms would say poorly. I feel that way sometimes. It's you have so many demands against you with your job, with your husband, with your friends, your family, and your kids. I mean, my boys are 11 and 9. They're very busy. And, I want to just raise good people. I don't need them to be CEOs unless they wanted to. I don't need them to go to Harvard, but I want them to be good, contributing people to society. And it's hard to keep that consciousness in your mind with all the things that you do. And I mean, today, for example, before I came, William got sent home from school for fighting on the basketball court. And also we got his progress report, which had an F on it, right? And we've just started school in August. So Patrick, my husband's like, he needs to be punished and he needs to figure out how he's going to bring this grade up and this and that. And I've actually used my coaching and mentoring that I use for my employees with Patrick and my son. I'm like, why don't we ask William, how are you going to figure out how to do this? Because you have A's and everything else. So you're capable of doing it. What is going to work for you? Me and Daddy are here to support you, make sure you're successful, but we need your help to figure out what that's going to look like. And so he was so happy at the end of that conversation. We put a plan together what he's going to do to make sure his work gets home and that me and Daddy are going to double check him and things like that. And Patrick looks at me and he's like, you just corporate eased me with your, with what you do at work. And, it is interchangeable. I think those skills can go back and forth. And a lot of people say you don't want, as a manager, be a friend and things like that. And you have to have boundaries. And I get that. But you also have to recognize you're leading people and everyone comes to work to do their best. And some days you're going to have a bad day and you're going to make a mistake. But you have to acknowledge that and make space for it to be safe to do that.
Right.
And then figure out a way, okay, well, what's the problem? How do we fix it and move forward? So sometimes, that does cross over. I mean, sometimes for work, I have like that mama bear fight back if someone says something about my team. But, I think that there's lessons in both that can be lived in both lives. Like it doesn't have to be compartmentalized. When people say it's a work-life balance, yes, that's true, but it's also like a work-life blend as well. And I work from home now, and my husband does too. So, I get to see my kids when they come home from school. It's the first time.
But you didn't always do that. It was due to COVID, so that's a cause of the change. So before it was probably a little more harder, but now being able to, due to COVID and a lot of companies changing their policies, that's really nice. You get to be there when they're coming home from school.
It is a huge benefit. And like I said, he got sent home from school today, and I get to, during my lunch break, have a talk with him instead of waiting till the end of the day when I'm tired. They're tired. But it's a challenge. I want them to see that I'm, a female and I work hard, and, their partner will be an equal to them, that you're not just getting married to have someone cook your dinner and do your laundry,
right?
But also I don't want them to be like, my mom always worked, which is hard. But I want them to see that you should work hard, and you should, when you say you're going to do something, do it. So, I don't think I've figured it all out yet.
Yeah.
And I'm sure,
I don't think none of us.
Yeah. They'll go to therapy when they're kids, older, and be like, my mom was never there. I don't know. That's my fear.
I don't think that's going to happen. How do you take ways to self-relax and, because you are busy with your job. I know you put in a lot of hours. You go to LA, you go to the plant, and then you have the 2 boys and, demanding here and there. Like, what are some things that you like to do, that helps you relax?
May sound lame, but my favorite activity right now is to put puzzles together.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I just conquered a 2,000-piece puzzle last week.
That's fun.
It took me 2 weeks to do it. So to me, it's kind of like, I think what my job is putting puzzles together, right? I have all these variables. They're constantly changing and trying to figure out solutions and plans for them. And so the puzzle is kind of like a simpler version of that. And so to me, it's relaxing to do while I'm watching TV.
That's awesome. What kind of TV shows are you watching right now?
Well, Patrick and I just started with The Patient.
Okay.
That's pretty good. With Steve Carell. It's on Hulu. Okay. Serial killer kidnaps his therapist.
Oh, okay. Something I probably wouldn't watch, but for other listeners, it might be up their alley.
Yeah, so that was interesting. But yeah, I mean, my husband and I have different tastes, but we do try to find a show or two a week that we can sit down and watch TV together and just relax.
I think that's always needed. So we do ask some fire rapid questions, so I'm going to ask some right now. If you could turn back in time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that to have confidence in herself, that she will get through this, that the boyfriend does not matter at that age. I mean, really, you spend so much time, I feel like, when you're young trying to find love and keep love. And, you really do have the rest of your life to do that.
Mm-hmm. That's good advice. I think you gave me that advice. For the listeners, Ginger's actually my cousin. So she got to watch me grow up to who I am today. And I think she gave me that advice multiple times. Okay, next question. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
I think my kind heart and being there. I think that it's important to make an impression on somebody, not because of what you've given them or what you've produced, but because, and as I said, what's priority for raising my kids, that they're good people.
What is a common myth about your job or field of expertise?
That it's just logistics. When people hear supply chain, they think it's just trucking and things like that.
Yeah.
But there's so much more involved.
That's why I wanted to go over a little bit, because I don't think people realize that entails trying to actually get the product to the shelf. And if you don't have a good system in place, then you're not going to eat your favorite snack or your favorite beverage.
That's right. I mean, it takes so much to get that bottle on the shelf. And then if you think about, the ingredients that we put in there, they're companies that have to, manage their supply chains, and they have to get their inputs to make our, for us to get it at our facility. So it's, you have to plan, you have to be able to pivot, you have to be able to react quickly to what's happening in the market and what's happening with all the inbounds and outbounds. If your plant only produces half of what you thought they were going to make that week, you got to readjust and adjust your plans and make sure you can support demand. So
I think it's really cool. I think it's a lot of problem solving and a lot of forecasting,
critical thinking.
And I think that's definitely right up your alley. And it's really cool to kind of see, okay, we hit our stride and we're able to put this on the shelf and we're able to, serve the public, which is really cool.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too. I mean, for your listeners, both Amanda and I have our Bachelor of Science in Economics from Cal State here, and two other people in our family also have it, and we have very different careers. But I think, they're all very different, but I think those things you just stated are probably a key part of that. Mm-hmm. Being critical thinkers, being problem solvers, and driving things forward.
Yeah. I would totally agree. I think that's definitely helped me in my career. I mean, different careers that I've had, but the current, owning the accounting firm, being able to go seek out the problem. People think of accounting and it's numbers and just data entry, and it really isn't. It's accounting for, okay, I need to go find this error. Why isn't it matching up? It's accounting for, all the different loans and liabilities and making sure everything is going out on the proper time. Or, we work with high-end clients who are selling houses and, getting that closing statement, making sure that everything is tied out properly. And I think it is, you need to be able to critically think through, I entered an expense for advertising. Okay, that's it. Well, no, how is that expense impacting everything in the books? Mm-hmm. Which some people don't have that skill to be able to go do.
Yeah, and see how the dots are connected. And how, if you change this one lever, how is it going to flow through everything else?
Yeah.
If I do one thing over here, how's that ricochet through the business?
So shout out to the CSUB Economics Department for producing some awesome go-getters. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for, coming on the show today, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
This show has been brought to you by the Law Office of Kyle Jones, Troy Burton with the Lynn Company, CPA John Duffield, Scott Hansen Real Estate Lender, broker and investor, Dave Plivlich, President and CEO of the Marcom Group and MarcomBranding.com, and Amanda DiGiacomo, President of Atlas Financial Solutions. You've been listening to the Our 2 Cents podcast. Check out the show notes for links and more information about the show. Also visit our website at our2centspodcast.com or catch us on Instagram at Our 2 Cents Podcasts. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share with others.